A Machiavellian analysis of corrupt global health and economic organizations. Niccolò Machiavelli's political theories, emphasizing the pursuit of power through pragmatism, manipulation, and the exploitation of human weaknesses, provide a useful lens for examining the influence and operations of global organizations. The World Health Organization, WHO, along with other influential international bodies like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, can be scrutinized through this Machiavellian perspective. This analysis highlights how these organizations may be driven by the interests of powerful individuals and groups, leading to questions about their true objectives and the integrity of their leadership. The WHO, influence and allegiances. The World Health Organization, established to coordinate international health efforts, is often accused of being influenced by powerful private interests. Critics argue that the WHO's decisions and policies are heavily swayed by funding from influential figures such as Bill Gates and powerful families like the Rockefellers. The Gates Foundation, for instance, is one of the largest contributors to the WHO. This significant financial influence raises concerns about the independence of the organization's agenda. From a Machiavellian standpoint, the WHO's reliance on such substantial funding from private entities could be seen as a strategic alliance. Just as Machiavelli advised rulers to form alliances that consolidate their power, the WHO's relationship with influential donors could be interpreted as a means to secure financial stability and political support. However, this alliance also implies a potential compromise in autonomy, aligning the WHO's policies with the interests of its benefactors rather than the global public good. The IMF and the World Bank. Economic leverage and control. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank wield significant influence over global economic policies, often dictating terms to nations in need of financial assistance. These organizations are frequently criticized for promoting neoliberal policies that favor the interests of wealthy countries and multinational corporations over those of the borrowing nations. The conditionality attached to their loans, demanding austerity measures, privatization, and deregulation, often leads to social and economic hardships in recipient countries. From a Machiavellian perspective, the IMF and the World Bank operate as instruments of economic control, using financial aid as leverage to impose policies that align with the interests of the dominant economic powers. This mirrors Machiavelli's advice to rulers to use whatever means necessary to maintain control and influence. The conditionality of loans can be seen as a strategic maneuver to ensure that borrowing nations remain dependent and compliant, thus extending the influence of these financial institutions and their backers. The United Nations, political influence and power dynamics. The United Nations, UN, established to promote peace and cooperation, is often viewed as being susceptible to the influence of its most powerful member states, particularly the permanent members of the Security Council. These nations, China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, wield significant power, often shaping UN policies to reflect their geopolitical interests. A Machiavellian analysis would highlight how the structure of the UN enables the most powerful countries to dominate decision-making processes, ensuring that the organization's actions serve their strategic interests. The use of veto power by Security Council members exemplifies this dominance, allowing these nations to block any resolutions that conflict with their objectives. This dynamic reflects Machiavelli's principle that power should be maintained through strategic alliances and manipulation of political structures. The World Trade Organization, trade policies and corporate interests. The World Trade Organization, WTO, aims to facilitate international trade by reducing barriers and enforcing trade agreements. However, it is often criticized for favoring the interests of multinational corporations and developed countries at the expense of developing nations. The WTO's dispute resolution mechanism and trade policies are seen as tools to enforce the economic interests of the powerful, leading to imbalanced trade relationships. In line with Machiavellian thought, the WTO can be viewed as a mechanism through which powerful economic entities exert control over global trade practices. By promoting policies that benefit large corporations and developed economies, the WTO helps maintain the economic dominance of these actors. This reflects a strategic approach to consolidating economic power, ensuring that the rules of global trade favor the interests of the powerful. Conclusion: the Machiavellian undercurrents of global governance. A Machiavellian outlook on global organizations like the WHO, IMF, World Bank, UN, and WTO reveals a pattern of influence and control driven by powerful interests. These organizations, ostensibly established to promote global health, economic stability, peace, and trade, often operate under the influence of wealthy and influential entities. This dynamic aligns with Machiavelli's principles of power, where strategic alliances, manipulation, and the exploitation of structures are used to maintain and extend influence. While these organizations play crucial roles in global governance, the Machiavellian perspective urges a critical examination of their operations and the interests they serve. Understanding these dynamics is essential for ensuring that these institutions work towards genuine global benefits rather than being instruments of powerful interests.